Okay, welcome all. My name is Neil O'Connor. How many of you have seen me before? A couple of you? Great. Okay. They have, somehow I am teaching global supply chain management. It is by design because about 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to stay practical. My training is management accounting, economics, which is not directly practical. Supply chain management is an application of economic decision making. It is an application of management. And I don't know if many of you know, I have lived in Hong Kong since 1996. I was there before the handover. And I left Hong Kong just less than 2 years ago and come to Malaysia. But my wife is still in Hong Kong, working in Hong Kong. So I'm back every 2-3 weeks, back to Hong Kong. I'm going back this Friday. Hopefully things are calmed down a little bit. Okay. Pretty wild last couple of months. Okay, so why do I say that I've been in Hong Kong? Because what do you do in Hong Kong if you're interested in supply chain management? What do? You go across the border and visit factories. But before I started visiting factories, which was only about 3-4 years ago, I went to trade shows and I interviewed suppliers. And back in 2011, 12 and 13, I supervised, that means I was physically present, over 1,000 suppliers at these trade shows. 1,000 interviews, each of them at minimum 1 hour. Okay, it took 2.5 years. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to be different from any other academic that goes out and gets a small sample, tries to do some statistics, then they publish a paper, and then no one reads the paper. Huh? All right, how many of you read papers written by academics? Anyone? Okay, I understand. All right? No, for that reason, all right? I grew up on a farm, so I'm very practically minded. Okay, there's only two things you do when you're in Hong Kong. It's either trade or it's finance. It's one or the other. Okay, so trade is much more practical in my mind, and that's where I leant. So by doing those 1,000 interviews, Global Sources discovered me and asked me to speak in their conference. And that started back in 2012. And so I've been speaking at their conferences every 6 months since. And it's fun because you meet a lot of buyers and they don't have time for theory. They don't have time for your latest statistics that academics do. They want real, tangible ideas. Okay, so they save money. Right? That's the game. And so that's something that I chose. Something that I've chosen to be practical rather than just stay on the academic route. Okay? As a result of that, it meant that I didn't get contracts renewed at other universities because I didn't publish enough of those papers that no one reads. All right. Why am I telling you this? Because what you're going to get in the next 12 weeks is you're just going to get authentic me. Okay? I'm not making up anything. I'm going to teach you stuff that I have witnessed and experienced, not what I've read. Okay? This is what working with buyers, consulting, advising buyers, and things like that. Okay? So it's important to learn theories. I will show you some frameworks. That's important. Theory is important, but practical is very important too. Okay? As you can see, I love visiting factories. Okay? All right? I started that 3 years ago. I've visited over 50 factories now. And what I mean by a factory visit is we video end to end. As soon as we get out of the car till we go home, we just video everything. And I use it in my teaching, and I use it in my talking with buyers. Okay? Now, I want you to... I'm sorry that there was a holiday last Tuesday. That meant that you got 1 week less time to decide if you want to stay in this course or not. Am I right? Am I right? Okay. Hello everyone, we're back again, and I just want to have a pop quiz. So in the first 2 weeks, are we looking at macro or micro? Macro. Okay. And then week 3 and 4, what is the general theme of week 3 and 4? The general theme is supplier challenges, contracting. Okay? And then we go into 5, 6 and 7. We're looking more at what? Operational. And then we go to the big players. Okay? The multinationals and everything like that. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, here's something that I went to these 2 factories, and so what are these factories making? Hello? Hoverboards. Depending which country you come from, hoverboards. Yes, we all love them. The US government banned them in 2016. Why did they ban the hoverboards? Why? They banned the import of hoverboards into the United States.
Because of safety?
Because of safety? What was happening to cause that decision to be made?
They were exploding their trucks. They caught fire.
They're catching fire. There were 74 fires around 2016, around the world, by catching fire, burning houses down. Like they go along on the hoverboard and it just catches fire. Whoosh. So the US government said, okay, no more. Right, in the cargo hold, on the plane, ships, whatever. None are coming into the USA until we develop a UL standard. What does UL stand for? Okay, you're going to learn in this course that later on, in about week 6 or 7, we're going to be looking at compliance risk. What is compliance risk? It's standards that different countries develop that you have to comply with if you want to import into that country. UL Underwriters Laboratories. And so my friend Charles Kermis, he was the advisor to the setting up of a UL standard. By the way, you'll meet Charles in some of the video interviews I do with him. And this factory here was one of the first to be UL certified. Okay, so which factory was first to be UL certified? The one at the top or the one at the bottom? Hands up for the top. Hands up for the one at the bottom. You've got to be kidding me. I just told you this one. I pointed here, did I not? You're not paying attention. Didn't I do this? It's on video. We play the video back if you want to. All right? All right, I pointed here. This one was the first to be certified. But look at it. Does that make sense? It looks like a real factory, okay? Processes, machinery, automated. This one, wow. This is what you call a workshop. There are a lot of workshops in developing countries. Now I say developing countries because I don't want to say I'm picking on China. Okay? Other countries, same. This guy here is our quality control person. Notice? There's the QC. Okay? And he's listening to music as he's doing it. And this is what they have to do that to test the hoverboard. But obviously it is very funny that, you know, the QC is just going around the workshop like this. But the workers in this workshop are much more talented than the workers in this factory. Do you know why? That's the question. I just made a statement. I want you to think. All right? The workers in this workshop are more talented than the workers in this workshop. Why may that be the case? Pardon? Okay, you're on the way there. Come on, yes.
Less machines, so they have to do it themselves.
Yes, or what does the machine permit the workers to do here?
Play with it.
Pardon?
Play with it.
The machines permit the workers to separate each task. So therefore, you hire one worker for one task. In here, the one worker is doing the 200 different steps to make the hoverboard. Obviously, this worker needs to be more knowledgeable, okay? And this one here, you can train up a worker in one day to go onto the assembly line. Here, it's going to take weeks to train a worker. Okay, all right. That's just a taste of what's to come. All right, we're getting a macro now. Let's just see if that top one doesn't work. Oh, it does work, yes! We're good. What do we have here? What do we have here? What are they making? Come on, yell out. I want you participating here. What are they making? It's textiles, yes. This is in Dongguan. This is about 50 kilometres north of, that's my friend, he's the merchandiser, 50 kilometres north of Hong Kong. Very big textiles industry up until about 10 years ago. But some of these factories still exist in Dongguan for 3 reasons. Number one, there's 3 reasons why they may still exist in a place where the wages are quite expensive. Why would they still exist? I want you to think about that. Expertise possible, resources possible. How could factories, small factories like this, still survive?
Quality.
We mean low quality.
High quality.
High quality? Yeah. Does that look like high quality to you? All right. How do little factories survive? Part of this course, we're jumping ahead here, part of this course is to make you much more sensitive and maybe empathetic, but being empathetic makes you a much better negotiator of suppliers.
Subsidies from the government?
Yeah, on the way. Okay, yes, the government did provide subsidies to these factories. Very good. Someone's thinking here. Anyone else?
You said it's close to Hong Kong?
It was close to Hong Kong. It is close to Hong Kong, but that's not the reason why they're surviving. Okay. What else happens in developing countries? This is not just China, it's other places. How do factories survive? Do they pay taxes? How do you avoid taxes in developing countries?
You do a lot of charity?
Yeah?
Charity?
No. You stay small. You stay small. You're under the radar. The government doesn't see you. And then you don't pay taxes. And if you don't have to pay taxes, then you can survive. Okay? How else can they survive? By being small, they can pay piecework to the factory workers, which is against the law in a lot of developing countries. Wow. no multinational will want to know that their supply chain is paying piecework contracts. And finally, all right, because one of these factories is secretly doing what? I'm just trying to get you curious here.
Money laundry.
No, on the other side, but it's nearly the same thing.
Fakes, maybe?
Pardon?
Fakes? Like
Yeah, very.
fakes or something?
Yeah, they do that. And so, what's similar to making fakes? What is similar to doing that? How do you go to a factory and you say, "Oh, I want you to make this cup for me," and they say, "Oh, sure, no problem, give it to me," right? So, what if they can't make it for a profit? What would they normally do? They say, "Oh, sorry, we won't do that for you." Yeah, they'll find someone else. They'll say, "Yeah, we'll do this for you." Then they'll secretly outsource to someone else and just get a little bit of a margin. All right? So one of these factories is secretly outsourcing. So the question I have to you is, which one? Top one. Hands up for the top one. Hands up for the bottom. Why the top one?
It's dark, so
It's what?
it's dark, there's no production there. Whereas the knitting is done in the second one.
Yeah, okay, exactly. You've got 4 knitting machines here doing the knitting. All right? There's no knitting machines in the top one. And the buyer in the USA didn't even know that. Because the merchandiser visits the factory, the merchandiser is friendly with the factory, and a lot of these buyers don't even go and visit the factory. All right, let's just keep going. This is the environment. This is in some ways, the macro environment of an emerging economy that a lot of supply chains are positioned in. Okay, let's keep moving. All right, we don't have time to cover all of these things, which, this is supply chain management here, right? So, we're going to be all over the place, and you'll be totally lost if we want to try and cover all of these. You'll be totally lost if I want to try and cover all of these. The challenges in 2018. How many of these challenges are today? Globalization, is that a challenge? We've got the opposite challenge today. Trade war. Okay? So the opposite to globalization. Customer service, is that a challenge? Yes? Okay, this is something you can think about here. Market growth, predictions for it, forecasting, technological advancements, cyber risk. Okay, there's a lot of things going on here. Okay, so for 60 seconds in your group, I want you, out of that list, pick out the top 3 that you think is relevant. Challenges in 2019. Go. It's 55, 54, 53, 52. Come on, in your group. You only have to find the top 3. Discuss. Ten seconds. 5, 4. Okay, we want 3 from every table. Okay, top 3.
Globalization, market growth, and like technological advancements.
Okay, so globalization. What else? Growth.
Growth and technological advancements.
Okay, why did you choose globalization?
It's always changing. Like you have to adapt. Like now it's just changing.
It like affects the economy and how the world runs. Especially like the trade war, it slows things down.
Okay. All right, so you think globalization means a very big macro thing. What did you come up with your top 3?
Globalization, market growth, and cyber risk.
Cyber risk?
So it's customer service, prediction and forecasting, and inventory management.
Oh, interesting. Inventory management. What have we got here?
Cyber risk, prediction and forecasting, and globalization.
Oh, interesting. Predictions and forecasting this table. Big one here.
Market growth,
Market growth?
predictions and forecasting,
Yes.
and cyber risks.
Okay.
Technological advancement, cyber risks, and market growth.
Okay, interesting. There's two, I'm not saying there's no right or wrongs here, but you know, this is changing all the time. But I was talking to the COO, which was the position that Tim Cook held before he went to CEO of Apple. So I was talking to the COO of HTC not too long ago, 1 or 2 years ago. He came from Sony Ericsson when he moved across to HTC. I said, what is your biggest challenge? Which one of these do you think was their biggest challenge? Remember, this is an electronics supply chain. It may be different for different supply chains, all right? So there's no one right answer. Cyber risk, okay. Advancements?
Advancement.
Huh?
Advancement.
Technological
advancement.
Growth? Louder, please. Market growth? Technology. I'm just challenging you here. I want you to think, okay, what would that COO of HTC have said as an answer to that question? And the answer he said was this one here, predictions and forecasting. Why would he say that? I want you to think about that. Why? Look, all these other things are around us too, but why is this one a challenge for a COO? That's Chief Operations Officer, right? Why do you think that's a challenge?
Because it's important to be first in the markets.
Predictions and, okay, predictions being first, okay. What's the forecasting thing about it?
It's hard to tell what's going to go viral next and what's going to be trends.
Why is forecasting so critical to supply chain management? What do you think about that?
Like how many units to make for their sale to happen?
Yes. Yeah, if you get your forecasts right, then you can run the supply chain like clockwork. That's it. That's all. That's all. You know, like Monash are trying to forecast how many will enroll in this unit, so then they can buy enough chairs to sit you all. Are you with me? That's all. It's just, no, don't overthink this, all right? Don't overthink. Supply chain management is very, very operational, okay? One more student comes in, you need another chair to hold that student, okay? All right, let's keep moving, all right? I'm just stimulating your senses here, all right? All right, so I can overload you with a lot of information, and that's why it's very important. Part of this course is that I introduce to you some frameworks. Why do we have a framework? Why do we use frameworks? That's a question to the classroom. By the way, I love your technology. Paper and pen. All right? That's what I do, paper and pen. All right? All right, in planning for this course. See? All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Why do we have frameworks? Why do we have a framework like this? What does this framework help you do? Does this help you? Hands up. Does this help you? Yes or no? Why? Why does a framework like this help you?
You don't get distracted.
Okay. You know where you are. You know the sequence. You know which comes first, second, third. We know which is big, which is small, or whatever the dimensions are. Okay, for the same reason why I need to introduce to you the 3-circle control framework, which remember I told you that really, really applies to the solopreneur, the small buyers, the Amazon power sellers. And when I talk at Global Sources, we focus on these 3 areas. And so when you go back home tonight, log into Udemy, and I think the very second video, I actually take you through this 3-circle control framework. And I'll briefly do that now too, but watch the video and to digest. What is it really about? Because the first half of the course, a lot of it, after the macro, we're looking at the 3 parts. We're looking at those 3 areas. Ah, wow. Okay. Is this in a normal supply chain management textbook? No. All right. This has developed out of all the advice and questions I've been receiving from buyers for the last 6 years, and how to help organise all the advice that I've been giving them. All right? Structuring a relationship is all about asking questions on the show floor, when you visit the factory, when you're negotiating. In week 5, we're going to talk about negotiation. Really? Wow. I thought this was just supply chain management. You've got to negotiate. You still got to negotiate. Okay? Suppliers don't always say yes. Yes, they do. Actually, a lot of the time they do say yes when they should be saying no. So you've got to know when their yes really means yes. All right? So asking questions helps you. Strategy to enhance the supplier's business model. Okay, so we're going to be looking at it at week 3. Week 3. Okay, week 3, week 4, all right? And then we're going on to, 5, 6, 7, where we start. Now, this is probably more about week 5, the purchase order, due diligence audits, intellectual property, warranties, ADR clauses, all right? Alternative dispute resolution clauses, okay? And then we have product inspection, lab testing. If you can't write it down and scientifically confirm it, you can't expect it to be realised. Okay, and week 6 or 7, I'm going to talk to you all about scams. Scams, that is, because my partner set up a website called supplierblacklist.com. And over a period of about 5 years, we got about 1,500 complaints. Okay, and so we've got that data, we analyse the data. It is amazing, that data. All right, and so we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff that I've brought directly from the ground. Now, here's a brief way of using a framework to look from the buyer angle and the supplier angle when it comes to negotiation. Because when you're negotiating, the traditional Western model is, to bargain. You say $1.50 and you want $1 and you say, okay, 75 cents, and let's meet halfway, right? It doesn't work like that when you're trying to develop a relationship in a supply chain. That type of negotiation is for a once-off, short-term, you go to the flea market deal, okay? Supply chain management is far from that. That is not the negotiation we are talking about. Negotiation, we're starting to think about, okay, what's in the mind of the supplier? They want to improve. They want to improve what they're doing. They want to know that they can get paid, or clarity for how they can do better. Whereas buyers, what do buyers want? Buyers want to know the supplier is capable. They want to know that the supplier can deliver on quality, time, and they want to have clarity as to whether to pass or fail the supplier's delivery. It's a simple way of structuring, like a framework, to say, okay, this is what the supplier wants and this is what the buyer wants. Ah, wow. Did you get this from textbook? No! Just on the ground experience of working with these solopreneurs and how they work with their suppliers. Okay, here's another framework. Remember, frameworks. This is theory. Be careful. Be careful. All right, dangerous area. Theory. All right, and this is the view of Bayman Rajan, and these are people that don't know what a human looks like if they see a human. They don't know what a company looks like if they see it, because they do mathematical puzzles and they do optimization, analytical techniques and things like that, which is good. They must be very smart to be able to do that, all right? And so they came up with, okay, here's a framework. We've got to make a decision whether to make or buy. And then what is the contractual arrangement? And then if we have many suppliers, then do we organise in a hierarchy, or do we organise horizontally? All right, that's another framework, okay? And then another framework comes out of the management science literature where we're looking at supply capacity by demand forecast. There's that forecasting, that challenge, okay? And supply cost structure. This is the unknown. This is the unknown, the big unknown, supply cost structure, okay? That's where suppliers can pull the wool over your eyes. Okay, so let's get on to the macro, the mega trends in global sourcing. I came up with 8 of them, and some of these are not as probably important today. And please review these because I'd like to make some multiple choice questions out of these too. But small size enables suppliers to be under the radar, like we said, the factories. Human resources, labour turnover, training, incentives, career development. All right, there's the wages. The wages of a factory worker in Malaysia now are a little bit cheaper than the factory workers in Shenzhen. Did you know that? It's amazing. It's cheaper to hire a factory worker in Malaysia than in Shenzhen. Okay, and I go to Shenzhen now, and the China government have these contracts that you contract with a worker. It really puts the handcuffs on you as a business owner, as a factory owner, because if you want to get rid of a worker, you've got to allow them to finish that contract, and they have to do something really, 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 really bad for you to sever that contract, because they're protected under China law. So how do factories get around that and still be flexible? What they will do is actually they'll get an agent to contract for the workers, and then they buy the time off the agent, sort of like temp labour. That's what factories are doing now to deal with the different regulatory requirements on labour. So human resources, it's always a challenge in these economies. Quality mindset, that is always a challenge. World-class, Chinese companies with EOM arrangements with international brands are likely to be the winners of the current manufacturing malaise. What I mean is, and we'll talk more about this next week, with the China 2025 plan, which is the China Industry 4.0. Malaysia is trying to focus on how Industry 4.0 can help its own economy as well. They're all looking at it in different ways, but BYD is a great example to come out of the Chinese technological developments that they have in Industry 4.0. We'll talk about that more next week. If you take the bus, the bus, the BRT. Yeah. So what is the manufacturer of that bus? Have you noticed?
Yeah, it's a Japanese company.
Japanese. Okay. Anyone noticed? Don't you notice? Like, what do you do when you catch the bus? You always look at your phone. Don't you pay attention? What colour is the bus? You probably wouldn't even know. Red? It's not red. People don't take notice these days. All right? It's green, grey. Okay. All right. What is the name of the bus? All right? When you get on a bus next, pay attention. Find out. Okay? All right? You'll find that it is BYD. Okay? All right? BYD. All right? Made in China. BYD is the largest electric motor vehicle producer in the world, making numbers of electric motor vehicles. Okay, relationships and marketing, very, very important. E-commerce, of course, that's a game changer. Auxiliary services and design. So these were mega trends that I thought about from the China point of view, but from the buyer's point of view, I thought about close it. Close it. What do we mean by CCLOSIIT? Close it. So what does that mean? Oh, compliance. This is huge. This is huge. You have to know about compliance. If you want to do a major project in that area, I would definitely encourage you to. Compliance regulations, it is just, this is big, 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 big. Okay? I had a client come to the trade show, he had a problem. The problem was he was sourcing power boards from a factory in China. Power boards, where you can convert one adapter into 4, so you can run 4 different things. The right power board, right? Okay, so he sells 7,000 units through Amazon. and then Underwriter Laboratories, they contact him and with a letter to say cease and desist and do a product recall. And you say, wow, what's this going on? And what he finds out is that the factory that manufactured it for him was not a UL certified factory. And so he had to do a product recall on those 7,000 sales. And it was 7,000 different people he had to contact somehow. Okay? Wow. Solopreneur, Amazon power sellers. Okay, so that compliance, it's big thing. Okay, collaboration, logistics, ecosystem, speed to market, very, very critical. Skill set. We're going to talk about that when we get into week 7, week 8. We start black box manufacturing. My friend in Shenzhen has a black box manufacturing facility. We'll be talking about that when we look at contracting IP. Equity, joint ventures, trade agreement. So here's another way of framing a whole heap of issues in terms of calling it 8 mega trends. Wow. So I've just exhausted you with frameworks. There's another framework. All right? Frameworks, frameworks, frameworks. Okay, so let's get on to macro shifts very quickly. Trade war. You all know about the trade war, and it's very political because Trump goes up for election next year and he wants to have a win on this trade war. And the Chinese know that and they don't want him to have the win. It's just simple as that. And so the Chinese are just stalling and stalling and stalling, and Trump's getting frustrated and impatient. And that's why the other week he announced another 10%, all right? Because he knows that if he can get things out of that trade war, then he's got something to go to election next year. The Chinese know that too, and that's why they're playing the way they are playing. All right, that's all. Is there a big cost to the trade war? Yes, United States, the GDP can go down because of that. The GDP response to effects on confidence or the effects on trade. So this is from a source. I need to find this, but it's definitely a cost on China, and it's a cost on global trade, and that's in terms of a percentage impact. It's not really changing the trade balance between China and USA. The trade balance is still highly skewed, and that will never really change because of the way that factories are structured. They're structured differently in each country, and the labour is different. It's hard to get factory workers like you can in China. Okay. What's the full-blown trade war like? I should know, being close to Hong Kong. Huge impact on Hong Kong. Very huge impact, like negative in terms of trade growth in Hong Kong in the last 12 months. And then across different countries, there are different impacts. Now, why am I presenting this here now? You may want to think, for my major project, we want to focus on the trade war. All right? And so you may want to have this as a starting point and then think about, here's something you need to think about, and this is probably the best chart of today. This is talking about, each one of these circles represents a product. Okay, so we're talking about tens of thousands of products being shipped from China to USA. Some of those products can only be purchased in China. In other words, USA relies on China for sourcing that product. And that's what we mean by the products that are up here, okay? All right? So USA cannot get an alternative source than China, all right? But some products, there are alternative sources, like down here. And then there's some products that affect China a lot because they make up China's share of global exports is a huge amount, and here it's a small share. So the products that operate over here are the high-risk products for both countries. for China in affecting how much exports it can develop and its export growth, and for USA in terms of working out substitutes. Because these products here, and we're talking about rare earth commodities, things like that, China is the major supplier of the world. The major supplier. So US is still dependent on China at the same time that they are putting tariffs on what China is sending to the USA. So this is another way of looking at the dependence between two countries. Think about that. Okay? There are different ways of looking at dependence. How many of you know what rare earths? How many of you have heard of this idea of the rare earth? Rare earth. Rare earth. Okay. R-A. I can't even spell. Earth, right? We're talking about minerals. We're talking about minerals that are rare, all right? So not every country has them, but China has a lot of them. And they are minerals that enable the magnetization of different components in different products. And they're very important for your smartphone. They're very important for miniaturization of things. And the world basically depends on China for the rare earth minerals. Okay? So this is something that even Xi Jinping recently said, we want to prioritize the use of our stock of rare earths and keep it local and make sure that our own companies get their supply before we export these to other countries. There's different ways in which China can play the trade war that USA may not see coming. But there's a lot of different dimensions of this. We can just look at in terms of just the amount of exports of GDP, which the general media keeps on focusing on, but they don't focus on particular products. Like, if we look at these products, I'll give you an example here, all right? Which product do you think is over here? In other words, a major product, you probably don't use it in Malaysia. It starts with E, and China is the major producer of this product in the world. It starts with E. You can find it in a lot of houses, especially in the colder areas of the world. Come on. What? Come on. Speak. Starts with E. It's a household product.
Did you say E or B?
E for echo. E. Sorry, my Australian English. Come on. They're not sold in Malaysia because of the weather. Electric what? Electric what? Close. Come on. Electric blankets. Yes, exactly. I'm serious. Serious. Electric blankets. China is the major producer of electric blankets in the world. Like, there's no other country that makes electric blankets. And they're the major. That's the major product that is shipped to USA. Isn't it amazing? All right. So how do you find out this? If you go to quartz.com, it will tell you about the top 10 products that are here that China ships to USA. So think about that. Okay. So very, very practical stuff here. All right. Okay. You all know that. Okay. What's another macro thing you need to be aware of? Another macro thing. That is that up until 5 years ago, China generally was a manufacturing-dominated economy, but 5 years ago, a special thing happened, and that is the consumer started to take over manufacturing as a share of the total GDP. So what does that mean? It means the following. It means that China is much more resilient to outside shocks when its economy is more reliant on its own consumer. If this trade war happened 5 years ago, it would have been very, very disruptive to China compared to today. Okay, because China's consumer is huge, all right? It's big, all right? China's GDP will pass the USA's GDP within 10 years. They're talking about they will pass when they get to about 22 trillion. I think US economy 17, 18, China's 14, 15. Okay, China's growing a little bit faster than the US, and then they'll both reach about 21, 22 in about 10 years' time. Okay, so this is a long game, okay? This is a long game that these economies are playing. Okay. All right, China restructuring. What do I mean by this consumer? Well, what China has been trying to do in 30 years is what USA took 60 years to do. That is to go from 40% to 70% urbanisation. What does that mean? Urbanisation is a way of increasing the productivity of your people by up to 6 times. The average productivity of a worker that goes from the farmland into the city is multiplied 6 times. The change in productivity. That's why urbanisation is good for the growth of economies. That's the economist's argument, all right? So I want you to think about that, all right? So when we go to urbanisation, that's where China is. They're by the end of 2025 and onwards, they want to get up to 70% urbanisation. All right, what does that mean? And how's that different between China and USA? Apologies for not talking about other developing countries at this point. What it means is that, the other thing is that when you go inland, the productivity of the inland is much less than the productivity of the seaboard cities. And so what's the difference between China and USA? What's the big difference? China has sea on one side or 2 sides? One side. And then it has inland. USA has sea on one side and the other side. Well, does it make a difference? It makes a huge difference. Because it makes USA much more manageable of its demographics, and for irking out that productivity by, especially all its productivity happens at California and then New York and all the way down the other side. Okay, and all the farmland down the centre. Well, China's got that on one side, but when you go inland, it doesn't have that seaboard, all right? People don't want to live inland. They want to be next to the sea. Okay, all right? So that's a challenge that China has had in managing its population. So what it has is, how many of you have heard of a hukou system? Hukou, do you know what hukou means? What it means is, if you grew up in Chengdu, which is inland China, and you want to work in Shanghai, yes, you can come and work as a temporary working pass. If you bring your wife and kids, those kids will not be allowed to go to school. You're not allowed to get any health, medical coverage, anything like that, because you can only get that in the province you grew up in. So that's how China controls its population, through this system. So otherwise, you would have 1.3 billion people living on the side. Okay, all right. So a lot of economists argue that that's inefficient, the hukou system, because in order to keep people stable, what I mean is people happy and people content with that system, like lot of discontent if you go to Shanghai. Just because you weren't born in Shanghai, you can't have the same rights and benefits as someone who's born in Shanghai, like you can in other countries, right? But it doesn't happen in China. So what does the government have to do? They have to give lots of subsidies to the inland provinces. And so economists say that that's inefficient for China. Okay, these are challenges. These are internal macro challenges that China is facing for the last 30 years. About how does it manage and shift its population? Does it matter for supply chain? Yes, it does. Because 10 years ago, those two factories I showed you, those textile factories, they were in Shenzhen, in the heart of Shenzhen. Today, you may not see them for 100 miles away. Because in the meantime, the government has pushed out all the dirty factories. The government has brought in and redistributed the land for residential projects to make it more urbanised. Okay? Does that matter for you as a supply chain? Yes, it does, because I had a buyer that contacted me. He wanted me to give him advice because he was importing hair curlers. Hair curlers, you know what a hair curler, you know? You crimp your hair and it makes it curly. Like mine, my hair's curly, right? Okay, it is. If I let it grow for the next 10 weeks, you'll see. All right, so anyway, so he was sourcing from a factory just out of Wanzhou. You know where Wanzhou is? Wanzhou, yeah, south of Hangzhou. Okay, so it's far from Shanghai, far out. It's not in the city. And I said, and he wanted to get a cheaper quote on a lab inspector to make sure that the factory is compliant with everything. Because he didn't get a good job done by AsiaInspection.com, which is one of the companies out there. So I introduced him to TUV, which is a major German company, very well established. And then he come back and say, no way, they wanted 4 times more than what Asia Inspection wanted to charge me. So what do you expect? You want to do a good job? Then you've got to pay the money to get it done properly. And I said, look, your suppliers in Wanzhou, here's another strategy. Find a supplier in Shenzhen that's close to a range of quality inspectors who will be cheaper. So you bring the supplier to the inspector. Can you do that? Of course you can, but it's going to be much more expensive in Shenzhen to source from Shenzhen. But you can get cheaper inspections being done. All right. So these are, when you understand the geography of a country, if your major sourcing footprint is from that country, it's very important you understand the geography and the challenges that that country has had. I know very little about India, Pakistan, or Indonesia, or Vietnam and Thailand. You may want to focus on that as your major project, about how the particular of a country creates problems for the supply chain over time. Okay, here's Malaysia, the wage rates in Malaysia. There's China. But China is older than the average labour base in other countries. Okay, so let's notice how, like there's Malaysia's average monthly wages. It's a bit old, it's 3 years old, but you notice that China just it's pricing itself out. Okay, so why would you still source from China? Think about that. The answer is simple. You don't just choose a country to source from based on wage rates alone. It's multi-factors. Okay, here's a big thing I want you to take away. All right, so let's give up on China. Let's go to India, or let's go to Vietnam, or go to another country, all right? No, not so fast. Not so fast, because this is the capacity of the China ports in China. We're talking about 145 million TFUs. That's equivalent 20-foot container units, okay? Whereas India 6, probably more now, Vietnam 4. So big difference in that capacity of shipping. right? So that's another thing you need to think about when you're choosing a country to source from. Remember, when we talk about macro issues, it's about, well, if we're going to source, which country do we choose? Okay, and then if we choose a country, where in a country do we choose? Okay, geography is very, very important. Okay, we talk about the Greater Bay Area. What is this? Hong Kong, there's Shenzhen. Shenzhen's economy now is larger than Hong Kong. Dongguan, Guangzhou. I was talking to a guy last week. He wanted a conference call with me to pick my brains because he was sourcing a product from a factory over here. It's about 1 hour out of Guangzhou. And the factory was making a pillow speaker or something to sell on Amazon. Okay? I'm thinking, wow, you have to go that far now to source something basic like that? Yeah, serious. Okay, Shenzhen is a hothouse of innovation. All right, Hong Kong, hothouse of protests at the moment, but that will get better. All right, innovation, and I've spent a lot of time in Shenzhen recently, so that's very important. Here we have the One Belt, One Road. A little bit more about that next week. How many of you have heard of that? One Belt, One Road. Okay, very quickly, let's finish up here. Time is running out here. No, we've got 10 o'clock. We can go for 2 more hours, right? All right, I'll speed it up a little bit then. Okay, all right. Okay, the One Belt, One Road refers to the shipping lanes, and also the Silk Road. Okay, so the shipping belt and the shipping belt going all the way around to Venice, and the Silk Road going around to Venice. Okay, all right, and so Venice here, right? All right, but the Silk Road came all the way through to Turkey long time ago, and so now the China government, they put lots and lots of money into re-establishing, and basically at the moment there's lots of infrastructure, lots of projects, not necessarily lots of population, but in some ways a lot of these projects are connecting projects. So you can put goods on rail and then ship to Europe. But still the cost is not much cheaper than putting it on a ship and going around the long route here. Okay, there's more to be done on that. That's that's a long-term project.
Sir, but can they take the 20-feet containers in a train? Is it possible?
Yes. They put lots on the train. Yes. Part of the challenges on train also is the security, because as the train is going overland, they have to stop from time to time, and so the train needs to be secure at all times.
So does it take 60 days with the time?
Oh, the time. Okay. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, let's find out that.
The lead time is already mentioned in an LC, so
Yeah, you need to think about that, yes. That's a very good question. Is the train faster than the ship? But the cost is not cheaper. It's not cheaper. And I think security is the big problem at the moment. The only problem with ship, the security problem is when you get around the Horn of Africa with the pirates. Okay? But that's a risk that everyone knows. Okay? But on the train, it can happen anywhere along here. Okay? There's challenges. Very good question. Train is still expensive. It's expensive, still. It's cheaper to ship to LA from China than it is to put stuff on a train and send it from inland China down to the eastern seaboard. Like that's how comparatively different the costs are in that. So One Belt, One Road, you could make that a focus of your project. Remember, some of the macro ideas can be a focus. Here's something no one is talking about, but I think this is something that is not going to go away. China has one of the lowest amount of water per capita in the developed countries of the world. Okay? And so they come up with this Water 10 plan. What's the Water 10 plan? Sorry, are we going to have a break? Do you want to have a break? Are we breaking? Shall I keep going? Quickly. Okay. Water 10 plan was a way of the China government to say enough is enough. Factories that are polluting rivers, we're going to close you down because you're in dirty industry. And so they closed down factories. 2017, they had a widespread investigation of factories and just closed them down. And what factories did was, they closed down in the daytime and then they secretly operated at night time. And then the authorities found out about that, and so then they sent people in, not to tell the factory to close, but they sent people in with sledgehammers to hit the machines. That's the only way they could stop the factory from operating. You don't believe me, do you? I'll show you next time. I'll show you. I got video of that. All right. So these things are happening. All right. So you want to think about is that if that's your factory that you're relying on for the supply of goods, you need to know. You need to know where that factory is with respect to a particular preference that the government of the country you're sourcing from has in what you're sourcing. Okay? Textiles, leather, it's always dirty industries. So how is your supply chain affected by the government of the country you are sourcing from? Okay? So these are macro factors you need to think about. These are regulatory factors you need to think about. Very, very critical. Okay? The next, China and MMC best practices. Let me, 1 minute. Just get some water for my throat. A lot of talking tonight. This is the most talking I'll be doing for the whole week, Okay, here's a summary. Here's a summary of what I felt are the major trends in terms of where do you locate. Okay, if you choose a country, where do you locate? And the country changes, then what do you do? All right, do you leave China and go somewhere else? Like trade war affects China. What? So should we stay in China and pay the extra that Trump wants, or do you go to Vietnam? Yeah, but these are questions you need to, what information do you need to make an optimal decision like that? When do you give up China and go to a country that doesn't have a trade war with your major market? Think about that. These are relevant questions you need to think about. All right, so here's examples of what I summarised as why people would stay in China. And that would be for this reason, for high-tech companies, because China is the largest electronics ecosystem in the world. Okay, complex products. They have skilled people. So that makes sense. That's why we're staying. Let's move inland. Why? Because I want more stability. Because one owner of a supply chain told me, I'm sick and tired of this factory that I'm running in Guangzhou, that every Chinese New Year I train up my people. I've got hundreds of them. I train them up. Then after Chinese New Year, only 80% of them come back. And I'm sick and tired of having to train another 20%. And so I'm going inland. not because it's cheaper, it's just that I just don't want to have to retrain all the time. There's reasons why people move from seaboard to inland. Okay? There's reasons why a German company that I spoke to several years ago, who had a joint venture in Guangzhou. By the way, your Guangzhou is southern part of China, right? Okay? And basically they refer to Guangzhou as sort of the cowboy area of China. What do we mean by cowboy? Like Texas? It means like, hey, we have our own rules down here. Yeah, because we're far away from Beijing, all right? You know, Beijing is a long way away, all right? We do things our way down here. Whereas Shanghai is closer to Beijing. So less that Shanghai can do that Guangzhou can get away with. You know, like under the table money. Do you know what I mean? So there's a saying, and I'm sure in other countries is like this, all right, that in some places the table is higher, and in other places the table is lower. Have you heard of that before? Hello? So if the table is high, it means, you know, there's a lot of under the table money, right? It's just part of the game, right? Well, this German company, they had a joint venture in Guangzhou. And they said, oh, we've got to the stage now, we want to expand. And we're going to go wholly owned subsidiary where we actually own the factory in China. And I thought, wow, this is great. So you're going to put a factory near your joint venture? Oh, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to set up in Shanghai. Shanghai? Why on earth would you put another factory that, 1,000 miles north of Guangzhou? Why wouldn't you situate near Guangzhou? Oh, sorry, we had a dictum from our head office in Germany. Berg, right? Germany? Yeah, sorry, I'm not picking on Germany. And head office said, under no means are you going to set up a factory in Guangzhou because there's too much under the table money going on. We want to have our wholly owned subsidiary and factory to be above board, fully documented and everything. So even though it was even more expensive to have that factory in Shanghai, all right? So sometimes where you locate in a country is dictated by the head office. Foreign Corrupt Practices Acts of countries of the buyer in the supply chain. So you think about that. So these are all macro factors that impact on if you source, where you source from. Okay, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Have you heard of that before? Anyone? Hands up. Are you aware of that? Okay. So dictum by some Western countries, some developed Western countries, that okay, it's all well and good, everything's above board in our country, but your supply chain must also be above board and must be at the same standard of, proper practices. And we haven't even talked about sustainability, environmental, social responsibility. We will get to that in weeks to come, okay? So we will get to that. All right, so a lot of information here tonight. I've thrown a lot at you. I just want to throw all the macro stuff at you before we get into the micro, the operations, okay? And just giving you ideas that may... Here's an example of, in Vietnam, this Texon Industrial Park, right? It's huge, 3,300 hectares of land, $1 billion of US investment by Chinese company. This is at the top of Vietnam. Okay, and it's just pure textiles. Boom, just textiles. The workers live there, just factory. It's just boom, But that's what you have to do if you want to locate away from China. You have to create your own ecosystem. Because a lot of countries don't have that natural ecosystem, depending on which product you're talking about. Okay, I won't have time to talk about these too much, but from time to time this semester, I will mention about the strategies of New Balance or VF. How many of you know VF? You need to know VF Corp. You don't know VF Corp? Hands up. One person. Yeah, what's VF Corp?
It's not a multi-brand company, like there is plenty of brands inside of the company. Like I don't remember which one there is.
Okay.
There is like
All right, let me prepare you for the multiple choice quiz. Okay? First multiple choice question. VF Corp is an NYSE listed company. True or false? Hands up for true. Hands up for false. I'm sorry, you've got to, it's one or the other. Okay, repeat the question. In English, huh? All right. Can you speak English, please? Okay. All right. VF Corp is a listed company on the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange. True or false? Okay. Ding. Correct. Okay. VF Corp is the largest manufacturer of jeans in the world. True or false? The largest manufacturer of jeans in the world. True or false? Hands up for true. Hands up for false. Okay, it's true. All right, just preparing you for the quiz. This quiz is going to be a hard one, all right? All right. So I just want you to realise that VF Corp, largest manufacturer, and so I know Veit Ghost, he's German. Sorry, picking on Germans tonight. All right, Veit is a German name, I think.
Yeah.
Veit, yeah. Anyway, so I asked him one day, because I see him at the sourcing conference every year in Hong Kong. And he's the global operation manager for VF Corp. So basically right around the world coordinating all the supply chains and everything. And I said, Veit, okay, all right, you know everything about the global supply chain. Just tell me, what is your, I always ask this, remember the COO of HTC, what is your biggest challenge? And what did the HTC guy say? Forecasting, okay? So I asked the same to Veit. So, what's your biggest challenge? He said, okay, now, all right, now, the answer, all right, I want you to, all right, quick, 60-second brainstorm. Now, quick, come on, I'm talking too much. Come on, all right, COO, HCC, forecasting. Now I ask Veit, Global Operations Manager of VF Corp. I asked him, what is his biggest challenge? Let me just give a little hint, all right? The largest manufacturer of jeans in the world. They make a basic 5-pocket variety from Mexico, and they have more high-end designs that are still made in China. And of course, they're sourcing from Honduras and I think 3 other places from around the world, okay? And I asked him, what is your biggest challenge? What is your biggest unknown? But let me give you a hint. The answer is not in my materials. All right? Come on. I just want to wake you up before you leave tonight. In case you decide on Friday not to come back, at least you learned something tonight. Huh? Okay. Come on. All right, 30 seconds. All right, do you know what the question is? What do you think the biggest challenge is for that Veit told me for VF Corp? Remember, they are sourcing jeans from 5 different major countries, but different designs from different countries. All right? High designs from the skilled country like China, low-end design from Mexico. Okay, what is your biggest challenge? What's the answer? All right, any ideas? All right, what did you come up with?
Quality management.
At least you're thinking. That's all I want to hear. All right, this is good. Quality management.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Okay. Quality management, sustainability. What do we got over here?
Is it logistics?
Logistics, okay, good, 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 okay.
Quality.
Quality, okay.
It is quality.
Okay, all right. Pardon?
Compliance with the local regulation.
Compliance, interesting, interesting. By the way, all of you are wrong. He said to me, he thought for a moment, and he said, Neil, it's on video too. I'll show you the video where they asked him. They actually asked him on the panel because he's on a panel. You can go on YouTube tonight and check his panel discussion where he says this, so you can verify it. Make sure that you fact check what I tell you. Okay, all right. And it is working out the cost of time. Ah, wow. Think about that. I want you to think. Think about it. What do we mean? What do we mean? Working out the cost of time. I want you to think, all right? The big market, USA, right? Okay, they got stuff from China. They're sourcing from Honduras, other countries, Southeast Asia, okay? And then they've got the European markets. They're doing shipping, but then they've got jeans that are made in Mexico and just go across the border. But the really good variety of jeans where they have new designs, they send those designs across to China to be produced, but then they have to go on a ship, and the ship has to take 5 or 6 weeks to get to market here. You with me here? I want you to think about it. I want you to think about their global supply chain. All right? They've got to get jeans to market. All right? USA people don't just buy the 5-pocket variety from Mexico. They want new designs. They own the brands like Wrangler and Levi's, and they own all of these brands. Okay? All right? All right? And so I asked him, what is your biggest challenge? And he said, just figuring out the cost of time. The cost. When, yes, we can pay a Mexican worker to make these 5-pocket varieties very cheaply, and in some ways they're more efficient than our Chinese workers, but we get the Chinese workers, they're highly skilled, we can train them to do the higher end brands, but then we have to take 6 weeks to get them into market. All right? And so he's dealing with a global supply chain. It's time to market. And what does that cost? What does that cost? And this is so tonight. I've thrown a lot at you. I want you to think about all the different things we talked about tonight, and some of the things that I asked. I asked these leaders of the multinationals, and every one of them give me a different answer. One says forecasting, one says the cost of time. All right. Another one says, dictum from the head office in Germany. Wow. This global supply chain management is not a simple thing. It's very complex. Right? All right? So my aim is not to confuse you with that complexity, but my aim in the first class is just to get you ready for it, okay? To get you ready. You need to be ready to absorb the uncertainty that comes with some of these frameworks. And then you enjoy the course more. You with me here? Okay? All right? You'll enjoy it more. So it's not going to be easy. All right? When you look at 2 factories and you try to figure out which one would you buy from, there's a lot of abstract things you need to think about. Wow. We're near the end. And here's the tree of sustainability management that I got from my interview of Anne-Laure Decourt. Who is Anne-Laure Decourt? Have you heard of her? Anne-Laure Decourt. Anne-Laure, she is a French lady. She lives in Hong Kong, and she is the global supply chain manager for who? Come on. Puma, of course. Look, Puma, look, Puma, right, come on. All right. Sorry, is this too small? This is too small for you, all right? All right, all right. And you can watch her presentation on YouTube. But I interviewed her for a KPMG report, and she talks about this is their plan. This is their global supply chain management plan. I'm not going to go in it now, but we'll come back to this later in the semester. So in the last 20 minutes, I've given you some flavour about how some multinationals are dealing with this landscape. The macro picture is, like every day you hear about this trade war, but like it's just a small thing compared to the big issues that VF Corp are looking at. They've got to get jeans to market on time. Whether there's a duty on them or not, that's a different issue. If they're not in the store, it doesn't matter what price it is, right? If the competition sells, then game over. You with me here, right? So there's a lot of factors, but when you read the media every day, trade war this, trade war that, you think, wow, there's only one thing that drives supply chains. No, there's a bit more to it than that. So that's a big takeaway from tonight when we talk about the macro. All right, we covered a lot. I'm all over the place. I did cover, productivity, the growth of the consumer, export dependency, China 2025. We'll have a look at that next week. The volume is the largest positive for China. Service expansion, that's a big positive. Water, that's a big challenge. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you now, like questions. A question is something that you ask, like, I want to hear from you. Yes, sir. Actually, what we're going to do, I'm going to pick on one of you from every table, so get ready when I come to your table. Yes, sir.
So do we learn strategies and theories so that we can develop the lead time for manufacturing processes?
The question is, will we learn the strategies and theories so we can develop or optimize the manufacturing lead time? Probably not in an analytical sense, but we will learn about the things you need to trade off. Okay, like for example, right? Some multinationals thought, let's move from China down to Vietnam. All right. So what do you say in China, by the way? Okay, based on what we covered tonight. Question for this table: why do companies are likely to stay in China? What is one reason? Based on one item of information I gave you tonight. Consumer, yes. All right. 1 point for this table. All right. Okay, that's consumer. They stay for consumer. All right. So this company, they thought, okay, let's make in Vietnam because it's cheaper, and then ship it back to China. But what happened was that the China customs, they got notice of this strategy, and then they decided, we want to inspect these products. And so they held up the product in customs for nearly a month. And so they get into the market in China and it's too late. All right? Yes, so you can do everything based on cost, but then it gets into customs and it gets held up. Then what's the point of doing that? You know what I mean? So, yeah. It's a funny animal to think that we can optimize perfectly a supply chain. And that's why the COO of HTC told me if I can get the forecast right, then and only then can I run the supply chain like clockwork. Now, that's different for VF Corp. Why is it different? Because HTC, most of their suppliers are within walking distance from their big factory in Taiwan. Of course, and they've got suppliers just across the river in China. Okay, so, very, very close ecosystem. All right, so you can understand, my biggest challenge is I got to get forecasts right. Right, that's not VF Corp's challenge. Okay, VF Corp is getting stuff to market on time. All right? Yeah. So it's probably going to be different to different industry. Very good question. This table, thoughts, questions? Oh, now that I keep on mentioning China, so where is everyone from?
India.
India?
Bangladesh.
Bangladesh?
China.
Oh, Bangladesh. VF Corp sourced from Bangladesh. China?
Yes.
Very good. Sri Lanka? India? Huh? Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan. Okay, on the border of Russia and China, all the way over there, yes. Maldives. They're underwater, aren't they? Yeah, they're. Yes. Okay. Germany. Iceland. China. India. Bangladesh. India. Okay. Those from India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, you need to teach me something, okay? All right? I cannot just be talking about China all the time. You're going to help me. Okay? Help me understand your region, huh? Okay? So I'm willing to learn. At the back, where are we? Singapore. Indonesia. Italy. Fantastic. Malaysia. Kazakhstan. Yep. France. Puma. My friend from Puma. Yes. All right. Wow, we've got international. This is fantastic. Okay. China. And you've got the Indonesian consortium here. Malaysia. Korea. Kamsahamnida. Yeah, all right, good. All right. Malaysia. Oh man, watch out. All the Malaysians are over here. All right. And what we got? Malaysia. China. Brunei.
Bangladesh.
Brunei, is that? So is Brunei Myanmar now, or is it Brunei?
That's Burma.
Okay. I got too much China on my mind. Bangladesh. Malaysia. Bangladesh is very big on dismantling of ships. Is that right?
One of them.
South of Dhaka, right?
But textiles and garments is the one.
Yes. My supervisor for my PhD is from Bangladesh. And I did my PhD in comparing, I was on national culture, on management control in organisations. I compared Singapore with South Korea. That's how I learnt a bit of Korean. Because I went to South Korea and did interviews. But that was a long time ago. That was 1992. Okay, so we've got the United Nations here. We've got the United Nations here. So I think we're going to have lots of fun this semester because of that. All right? I think if you turn up, have fun, ask questions, I think you all should score well. That's my view, okay? All right? And let me explain. I also teach undergraduate management accounting. Like I teach accounting. Can you imagine an accountant teaching you global supply chain management? Like, that's the best combination. All right? Okay, so I teach management accounting. That's my passion. And so the first thing I do when I show up, this is running out. The first thing I do when I show up for class we've got 150 students, and this was 2018 in February. We did it again this February. And I said to students, for your project, you all have to go out and interview a company. They go, ah? And suddenly they realise, oh, are we going to score well in this unit? Suddenly they're thinking, oh no, we're not going to score well in this unit. Because I gave them a very creative and uncertain task. The undergraduates don't like that. They want, they want bricks that they can put on top of each other and build up, and they want to know how to score. And but I showed them how they could do it and score well, and they did very well. And then I scored well too of my setu because of that. And a lot of my colleagues, teachers, right? Remember, I'm head of department. They're afraid to take risk with how they assess their students because they worry that the students will penalise them with their setu score. But I keep telling them, take risk and be passionate about what you're teaching, and then I will look after you as head of department, even if your setu scores are low. All right? Because you always... Melia, what? Sorry?
But then again, sir, you are the head of the camp. Which department?
There's a question. Okay, who has been listening? Which department?
And finance.
Accounting and finance. Which department?
Accounting and finance.
Okay, accounting and finance.
Because then auditing is a part for supply chain management too.
Yes.
Yeah. So in a way,
Verification, auditing, and oh yeah, I love that because I do the factory audits.
so in
And-
a way you're the best choice.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. He knows how to score well, this guy. All right, okay, all right. Okay, where are we on housekeeping? Let's finish off for a moment. All right, you've all written on the back of your card the reason why you're passionate about supply chain management. Is that right? Or why you have chosen this. Okay, all right. Because supply chain is in trend and demand. Okay, good. This is good. All right. Okay. But this is not something, well, maybe I read it out, but don't tell anyone who wrote that, and then you think, that's interesting. There's other people that have different reasons for being here. Fine, that's not the game I'm going to play with you. I'm not going to subject you to that stress. But I will get you to have a look at this. Just maybe fill out the last 2-3 questions. All right? Maybe a one-line answer is fine, or if you don't have an answer, you can skip it, that's fine. This is called the magic form. Why do we do that? Because at the end, I want to see where you are. Let me repeat, all of you are guinea pigs, did you know that? Because this is the first time I've taught this for Monash, I've taught it at NUS Business School. But those undergraduates, right? It's different kettle of fish, okay? So, and I got a lot of subjective stuff. I got a lot of war stories and everything. And some of you may think, oh, it's a bit too, lots of stories, but there's no substance, So just bear with me. This is the first week where we are introducing where we're going. All right? Let me just, I think I've got enough to go around. I want you to see the magic form. Take one, pass around. Most importantly, the last 2 questions. Yeah, the 3 last questions are very important to me because what it does, it tells me what you are getting. It's not what I think you're getting that matters. It's what you are getting. Okay? And that's what this form is about. Okay, this is it here. Just take one, pass around. Okay. Okay, take one, pass around. All right, we've got our Indonesian and Malaysian group here, mostly. All right, take one, pass around, and Korean. All right, take one, pass around. Okay. There you go, sir.